Welcome everybody to another edition of For Owners by Owners. I'm your host, William Fairbanks, and as always, I am joined by my very special partner, Mike Mevert, CEO and co-founder of Shop Controller. Mike, how you
What's
doing?
happening? It's another beautiful day. Thanks, William.
Always is
Appreciate
with
it.
you, Mike. Yep. Hey,
Yeah.
Mike, we are joined by our very special guest, the owner of Mevert Automotive, Matt Mevert. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Good to be here with you guys.
Yeah, man, it's good to talk to you again. It seems like it's been quite a while actually since we met at Shop Fix Academy, but we're glad to get you on the show. And Matt, just to remind you and everybody what we do here with For Owners by Owners is, we're really hoping to connect owners, successful owners of automotive shops like you and other influential people in the industry, with people out there, technicians or new owners, that are looking for some tidbits of how to be successful. How you got your start and how you kind of took that journey from just turning wrenches to the successful owner of two shops that you are today. So really just going to dive right in, and Matt, give us a chance to tell us a little bit about your origin story. How did you get started in the industry?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, kind of by default, I've heard a lot of people tell the story that they were technicians in a dealership and just wanted to be more independent, and so they just had this passion to get out on their own and dream of owning their own shop. But mine was a little different. I grew up working on cars. My grandfather and my father both moonlighted doing it. They worked in the coal mines by day and fixed cars at night. And as I got into the high school, I wanted to, like every kid, he always had project cars, and so I was doing that and working on some stuff for them. And then I got on with a local Chrysler dealership and worked for them until I left for the Air Force after I graduated high school. And when I came back from the Air Force, I thought I might just go get my job back at the Chrysler dealership, but that didn't, they didn't have any openings, and my dad at the time was really encouraging me just to start. He had kind of moved on to welding and fabrication, so he wasn't fixing the cars as much anymore, and he said, why don't you do this? Why don't you pick it up and do it full time? And so really at his encouragement, I did it reluctantly. I didn't know that I really wanted to be at that time a business owner. And so I did, and we ended up building a 40 by 40 addition onto the back of his welding shop. And that's where we started. And then it was very humble, and then a few years later, it was getting some momentum, and so I moved over on the same property and built the building, and then like I said, kept going. But around 10 years into that, 8-10 years into that, it became evident that I needed to do more with this than just fix cars. I felt like I was pretty good at fixing cars, but it was becoming increasingly evident that I wasn't real good at running a business, especially each time we tried to expand and add employees. It just wasn't working out. And so I found coaching. This was before Shop Fix. I am in Shop Fix now, but found some coaching, and that really kind of changed the direction of course of the whole thing. And so got that, and ended up growing that shop to the point that we were just landlocked and couldn't do anymore, and moved and built a new location about 6 years ago on the main highway in our town in Stillville, and then just last year added our second location, which is about 40 miles away in Marion, Illinois. And added that shop on Hales Automotive, and so that's where we're at today. And that's a real high level view of that journey. So if you guys want to know some more details, I guess you can just ask.
Yeah. So when you go back into think about that initial moment where you were like, okay, I need to do something a little bit different, because I'm good at one portion of it, but I'm not the other. And you got the coach. What were some of those first one or two things that the coaching had you focus on to kind of start making that jump into being a more successful business, so to speak?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. There were several, but the biggest one, and I still make this comment today, is just understanding, the aspect of labor in our business, knowing that at the beginning of the day, you have per technician, you're purchasing basically 8 hours of time from that technician. And at the end of the day, that 8 hours is gone. However you maximize that is really a big indicator of how successful your business is. And so that's what I learned first. Is I had a lot of labor leakage, and that's what always hurt us as we tried to when we would get behind, and I would think, well, I just need to have more help, and I'd get another technician to work with me. I was still turning wrenches then, or I'd get one, or one time I had two other guys, and it just we never. It actually almost seemed like it was costing us money, and it was largely because we didn't have tracking systems in place to make sure that for those 8 hours for each person that we were purchasing for the day, that we were getting that effectively sold to the customer. And that was the biggest thing. That was a complete game changer. Really set us on a different path, and we got a lot of momentum from that.
It's awesome. Do you remember what your numbers were when you said you had some labor leakage? Approximately, kind of what percentage did that look like?
Well, at the time when I first discovered it, I had no idea what the percentage was, because I wasn't even tracking labor sales versus parts sales versus, at that time. And again, as I said, I needed coaching, but we just came in and fixed cars every day, and as long as the checkbook had some money in it, we felt like things were doing good. We give our books give our whatever the bookkeeper wanted at the end of the month to put some numbers in the record. We would just give them some reports, or they'd come and get them, and that's how we rolled. And I didn't pay attention to any of that, and that was the reason that a reason for a lot of the shortcomings. So I don't know how much of a percentage. I don't know the actual percentage, but I would safely guess we were probably losing 50% or more of our labor.
Wow. Well, I'm sure you're not the only one that has started out that way. And that's why I was really curious of what that number was, because I'm sure, like a lot of other people out there, they don't have any idea what their numbers are. And now you set, like, okay, this is my baseline. This is what I'm doing. So then what was that first step? Now you started to say, okay, now let's start tracking it. What does that leakage look like? And then what were like some of the first steps that you took to correct it?
Yeah, well, the first step is getting all the technicians that you have, anybody that you have working on vehicles, you've got to get them to basically track their time. And at that time we started with, that was back in the days, things were a little bit more manual, and we started with these flag sheets. And so their time card, instead of it just being a time card that they clocked in at the beginning of the day, clocked out for lunch, and then clocked out at the end of the day, instead of it being that, it was a three-part form where they did clock in when they were available for work, but then they clocked in and out on each job that they were working on. And when they would clock out of that, when they were done with that operation, they would peel that flag off and tape it to the work order. And that's when you really start to get the revelations, because you can go through a week or two like that, and then start looking at how much was actually sold, how many of those hours were sold for the week, and how much time they actually had in it. And that's when you start really understanding that you're not even selling 50% of your labor.
Yeah.
And when you started tracking that, did you find that it was more you were underselling what could be billed, or you were wasting time, so to speak, on the job with unbillable hours, or was it some mix of that? I mean, I've been calling on shops for 20, 25 years, and Brett, we all know that the money where the money is made is in the labor, right? And but I also find it very interesting that that there's a several different views on it, like and a lot of people say, yeah, well, what you got to start looking at this, you got to start looking at that. Really, it's about one of those two, right? Are you
Oh,
billing the right amount of hours, or are you finding ways like waiting on parts or not having the right equipment, wasting those hours that could be billed, not actually working. Did you was that first step helping you able to track that down, and what did you find kind of was the biggest culprit?
yeah. I mean, it's all those things that you just said. When you're not paying attention to that at all, one, there's no expectation for the technician. So if he's handed a job to do and he has no idea what it's already been sold to the customer for, or what the book time even suggests as a normal time to get that done, if he has no expectation, no idea, well, then he has no, I think it was Zig Ziglar, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. He didn't know where he's driving at. And so then, that's the biggest, I think that's one of the biggest things that causes the problem there. And so once you set that expectation that now if you're going to replace this water pump and there's 2.5 hours, to get it done, that's what it's sold for right now. Well, now he's got something to pay attention to. He's got something to drive at. He's got a goal, and he can kind of keep himself accountable. But then, you add to that all the other things that you mentioned. If you're not paying attention and given that expectation, sometimes what was happening with us is, they might see that there was that it needed, if you're doing a water pump and say there was a belt that went along with that, but maybe the other two belts were on the vehicle were needing replaced too. So they go up and they ask for 2 more belts, and they get 2 more belts, but those belts also required an extra hour and a half to, loosen the power steering pump, loosen the air conditioner, and then replace all those. That stuff just wasn't. You're not looking at labor times and how effectively you're selling your labor, so you just don't pay attention to that, and it just gets unbilled. That they spend the time, but it ends up being unbilled to the customer, and so again, yet another thing that compounds that problem.
So what did you do to make sure that that stopped happening? Or was it education of yourself? Or was it education of a service advisor that was writing up the estimates and sending them off for approvals? What was that kind of first step to make sure that you didn't lose that additional revenue?
Yeah, well, I think the first step is setting the expectation. Okay, everything that we sell, if we're going to put a water pump on, we're going to get that printed on the job ticket or the repair order for the technician, and you're going to know how much time that's already sold to the customer for, and we need to try to stay in that time, and the service advisor and the technician's got to know, both have to know that. And then the second big piece of it is you start incentivizing them for with a pay system that will give them some benefit if they're able to get that work done in that time. That obviously adds to the accountability level of making sure we get done in those times, and that also lends itself to increasing the communication between advisor and technician. That if I am going to do an additional labor operation with this water pump, that if there is legitimately additional labor that needs sold, that we get that sold on there, because now they have some skin in the game if their pay is kind of reliant upon them being efficient, and the advisor's pay plan is structured so that they're rewarded for the same thing. Now these guys are bought in, and they have, like I said, they have skin in the game to make sure that we're making sure that we're very efficient. We're getting all this labor sold.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So a little checks and balance where both of them are getting some additional bonuses when they're underneath those numbers. So then they're both incentivized to make sure that those numbers are accurate and aligned, so they get those extra monies. That makes sense.
Yep.
For sure. Well, I love that you're sporting the hat. And we got to sit with a couple of your guys at dinner during Shop Hackers as well. So that was pretty special to bring those guys along. I'm sure that really kind of helps with the camaraderie of the team and the culture. And I'd love to kind of better understand, what you're doing to continue to keep that culture in a good direction, and how you're hanging on to all your employees and making sure the morale is high within the business.
Yeah, well, I think including as many of them as you can into a conference like that is definitely beneficial to improving that culture, because it's one thing for an owner to go to an event like that and come back with a bunch of ideas, and you kind of come back fired up and you're ready to make some changes, and everybody else, we sometimes as owners, we fail to understand that everybody else has just been in the trenches doing the same day to day, just kind of almost getting bogged down by that same day to day things that are happening, and so they're on a little different level.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and they don't really have that same fire sometimes, and may or may not even really see the complete reason for wanting to maybe change or improve something. So when you are able to get them out of that day to day and get them to a conference like that, where they can hear some of the same speakers, they can hear some of these same ideas, they can hear from, this is a big thing, they can hear from colleagues, from some of their same colleagues, that hey, we were struggling with this, or this was going on, but then we did this and it helped us by X amount, and you start getting big time encouragement from that, right? And that really helps them, and that's why I was really glad to be able to take them along with us to do that, so they could get that experience, and they can come back with that same amount of fire, because now you got some strength in numbers, right? You can,
Right.
I can bring some ideas, but they've also got ideas, and they're coming back kind of just as fired up as I am. Spreads
Yeah.
to the team easier.
Yeah. How often do you have both locations getting on a call together to discuss those ideas, or do they kind of work independently of each other?
Yeah, we're an hour apart, so they at this point they work independently of each other. We have been, like I said, I've only owned the second shop for, it's actually going to be a year next week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So, but we have been working on some structure to get some of the leadership at both places to where that we increasing communication so that we can start to share ideas and collaborate and get a little synergy going between the two shops. And that was actually part of that whole plan, because those guys that we had dinner with that you met, that was my manager from one store, and then my service advisor leader from the other store, and just getting those guys together for the weekend and share ideas and do some collaboration was just another step in that process of getting the two shops really working together.
Makes sense.
And speaking of the two shops, and then coming up on the year anniversary, so maybe take you back a little bit further. When did you kind of know? Because this is a very interesting topic with a lot of the owners that we've had on this show. When did you know that it was time to start looking for that second location? How did you start looking for it? How did you decide on the location that you got? Kind of all those things, that next step in the journey. When did that start, and kind of lead us up to almost being a year in to having two locations?
Well, yeah, if you look at my journey in the timeline, it looks like I maybe delayed a little bit longer than I should have on the second location. But I think, Shop Fix had something to do with it. You get around guys that have that growth mindset more, And you can, I think what happened to me is, I knew a few guys that had multi shops, but then I knew a lot of guys that just had the one shop. But being in coaching programs, you're always trying to dial those in, just keep refining, keep honing if you just got one shop, you just keep refining it, keep honing it, just trying to make it where, and you always think, well, as soon as I probably just need to do this, or I need to do that. Once I get that established here at this shop, then I can look for another opportunity at a second shop. And at some point you just have to go, I'm going to do it, And so being inspired by other guys that had already done that and took the plunge. And then this opportunity actually came along. I'd known the owner for a while, several years through Napa training programs and affiliations that way. And I knew he was getting to the point where he was, looking for an exit strategy. He was at that age, and then we just started talking and ended up working it out and getting it done. So it's just taking the plunge, it's just saying, hey, I'm going to do it. I think it's, and maybe not everything's perfectly in place, but
Right.
I felt solid enough that we were going to do it.
Now, was it a big transition for the new shop and the new guys, or did you make this decision because the new shop was already kind of running along and the same way? Like you'd been getting coaching, you've been implementing all that coaching into the original location, and I'm just kind of curious that the transition into the second location, and there was any heartburn or blowback for you trying to implement the same winning processes from your first location, and how that kind of worked out.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I had the benefit of being in, and actually, leading up to that, I was in a couple of different groups, and one of them was a group dedicated to guys that had merged, had delved into that multi-shop category, and some of them had been in it for several years. And so again, that's the beauty of being in those groups and having those networking groups that you can go in and say, hey, I'm pretty close on this deal. I'm gonna acquire this shop. How do I set myself up or set these guys up for success? What's the way to go in and break the ice? Because you hear all the stories, you hear the ones that go bad, you hear the ones that go well, as far as either everybody leaves or everybody stays. And so that gave me a good, I got some tremendous advice about going in, meeting everybody, trying to meet everybody early before the day of the sale. And just, you gotta, I think, going in humbly and understanding that, like, I knew this shop was well run. The owner was well respected. It by no means was a failing shop. So I think it's important in those situations just to go in and be humble and learn. Go in with seek. I think it was seek first to understand, then be understood. And I just tried to have that mindset.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, I love that. What were some of the first steps that you did once you made that acquisition? I know you said you met some of the team. Did you bring them to your other shop? What were some of the other things that you looked to do to ensure that you kept that culture that you've already built in shop one rolling into shop two? Even though that there was a good, well-run shop, you still needed to make some changes, I'm sure.
A few, but I didn't want to do anything like too radical at first. I mean, we implemented, we met with everybody, and that was the biggest thing. Is after we met with everybody, then I wanted to kind of continue follow-ups from that first meeting. So I just tried to spend more time when I was there prior to the day that we actually took ownership, and then even in the days right after we took over. I spent a good portion of my day just going around and talking to to the team individually and just getting to know them a little bit more. And I set up meetings with all of them, and I kind of systematically worked through all those meetings, and I tried to ask every one of them, what was one of your biggest fears when you heard that, this was going to be sold, and with us taking over, what was one of your biggest fears? And just let them talk about some of that stuff, and made a lot of notes on that, so that then I could address some of that stuff. But then there were little things that we did change, because now we were going to be governing two different shops. From a bookkeeping standpoint, we wanted to make sure that we started scanning all the repair orders up to one central place, so that bookkeepers and stuff could access that and be able to see those things without having to transfer files physically from one place to the other. So that was probably one of the early things that we implemented that was maybe a little out of their systematic process, was start to do this stuff digitally and scan all the repair orders, scan all the payments and parts tickets, and get those all to one central location.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Is there a little friendly competition between the shops now? Do they get to see their numbers?
Yeah, we talk about that from time to time, and in this case, the shop that I acquired, just in physical size and number of employees and revenue that it produces is just twice the size of the one that I originally started. It's in a much bigger town, much bigger market, and so just naturally that's the way that it worked out. But that still doesn't keep us from, every now and then, you can pick out one little metric that you want to kind of compete on, or you basically look at, using a 50% rule. And if they're, if one shop's getting closer than 50% to us, then that means they're could potentially be outperforming. So yeah, we do a little bit of that.
That's awesome. Well, your second shop and that acquisition is probably what a lot of guys go through for their first one. So maybe take us through you talked about how you already knew the gentleman that was looking to sell. But then how did you start going about, the financing part of it and understanding the numbers of, what is that shop worth and how are you going to pay him for that? And maybe kind of help us better understand some of the coaching that you received to, decide on those numbers and actually go through with the acquisition.
Yeah, and again, that coaching was super beneficial, and having that network group of guys, because what I was able to do then, you typically, how these things go, your auto repair business, as well as many businesses, when they get put up for sale, it's a multiple of the net profit, right? And so the first thing then is, getting some financial statements and looking at some P&Ls and seeing where they're at and what historically, usually ask for at least a 3-year history, so you can see what the consistent profit is, and then you start negotiating on, what that number is going to be, and that's kind of how we did it. And then with like I said, with me being in the groups and having the network of guys that I have, and I got some close friends that had they were a little out in front of me as far as acquiring new shops. They were 2 or 3 years ahead of me where they had gotten started with this process. So that was so beneficial to be able to jump on a meeting like this with them and share some financials and say, hey, what do you think? This is what this deal looks like. Would you do it? Show me the pitfall, shoot some holes in this. What do I need to be looking out for? And that helped tremendously to know that. And honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of, we didn't start here and end up way at a different place when we got done negotiating. It all stayed relatively. What he initially asked for his business was pretty close to what it was worth, and we stayed around that, and it's all worked out as far as what I ended up with in the end.
Awesome. What are some lessons learned that you can share with somebody looking to make that first acquisition, or maybe now that you're even thinking about for doing your third one?
Well, a couple of, well, there's a lot of things, I guess I should say, but I mean, if we tried to narrow it down to a couple, I think one of the big things for me, I had looked around at empty buildings and or shops that were operating. They were smaller than this shop, but they were struggling a little bit. Maybe the owner was just trying to get out from under them. And when you looked at those situations, they were attractive because they weren't going to cost as much, right? But there was also they were way under their potential. There was going to be a lot of work, a lot of changes need made to go in and get these things going at the level that we ultimately wanted them to be. And then, of course, if you're looking at an empty building, you got all the startup costs that go with that and getting everything started and going. Versus you take this business that I went ahead and bought, bigger investment, but it has a team of people that it's working right now, and you can kind of go in and just make tweaks and kind of learn what they do best, maybe apply some of what you feel like you can bring to the table, and then a combination of those two things takes the business and advances it. And I wanted to be a little more conservative and maybe just go ahead and not invest as much and try one of these startups, but my network of friends were like, no, just take this one. It's going to be, and I'm glad that I made that decision, because this has been it's worked out well for us.
Yeah, I'm sure the consistency was already going to be there. So definitely a lot less work to get them to where you need them to be, opposed to if you're going to go into an empty building, then you're going to have to go recruit all new technicians. You're going to have to put a whole new team and process there, which is probably going to take a lot more of your time up front as well.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Did you got the itch to go get another one? Oh, sorry, William.
Yeah. Better question.
Yeah, I was wondering, Matt, you got the itch to maybe try one of those empty shell buildings, or what do you think? What do you think the next one's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm always up for a good challenge, and I still would like to do one like that, just because I think I got good enough processes that you could bring a good marketing process in to get it kicked off, and then of course, like you said, you got to get the staffing in there. That's probably in today's climate, that's probably the biggest hurdle, is just getting that team of people built. And they're going to have to believe in a vision, right? Because you're hiring for an empty building. So when they come over, I mean, you got to sell them on the vision. But I would like to endeavor. I'm not going to say that I definitely wouldn't. I would entertain doing something like that.
Very cool.
Anything already in mind, or it's still a little too soon for that?
No, this was a big deal. It took us a little over a year to get this deal done, the one that we finished up a year ago, and so I've spent the last year just kind of catching my breath a little bit, and then adjusting to having the two shops. So nothing in the works right now. But not, we're kind of getting to that point, I think, where we could maybe just start kind of at a high level looking at other opportunities.
I gotcha. So I know one thing that we find also a lot in common with shop owners, and especially the coaching groups talk about it. We've had, Rick White and Clint White on, both coaches, and they talk a lot about, helping owners, work on the business instead of in the business. It's a very big thing. It's hard when you grew up turning wrenches and you know that you're better at turning wrenches than a lot of people. It's hard not to want to dive in there. So how does that so just a step forward now that you have two businesses, how do you're already being coached and working on your time of how to split up the time evenly, in the back versus the front. Now you have to do that for two businesses. So, where how have you really been able to maintain that and what kind of advice would you give other people looking to become a multi-shop owner of of how to be able to devise your time between two shops or three shops, and still be an effective leader?
Yeah, early on, I had more trouble with that. Now I'm kind of to the point now where, frankly, I mean, these guys, our team here, especially if we're talking in terms of technicians, these guys know way more than I know. I mean, they're very,
Good.
very, very sharp, and know how to work on these vehicles today. And then, even from the service advisor standpoint, they it's talked about a lot when you read leadership information, and that, is don't be afraid to hire people that could do that particular task better than you. And I feel like, that I've done that. I mean, I've got service advisors and I've got technicians that are working for me that I guarantee you could do either one of them positions better than I can. And I think it's just about a mindset change, just getting yourself to that point where, you got to let go. If you want to grow, you got to let go. And I think one of the most beautiful things about that whole process is, and this is probably why I'm more comfortable just letting, I don't have a big pull to get back out into the shop and just do it myself, because I have, I have made that decision. And some of these guys, my manager, shop foreman, here at Stillville, at the Mevert Auto location, he was a guy that we hired just as he was finishing his second year of college, and he really came just to sweep floors and do the cleanup and maybe an oil change or two. And now he's at the position that he is. He's a master certified technician, and he's probably within the next year he's going to be what ASE terms a world-class technician, which is certification in all their key areas. And so just to see his growth, for one, I had to give him, some space to do that. Right. And just to see his growth and be a part of that is where the satisfaction is for me.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think one of the biggest things between kind of a leader versus, and somebody working for that leader is, I think a leader, you got to be able to find that space to give them and support them on their journey of getting better at what they do and becoming that, leader in whatever field it is. But then you also have to have that like-minded with that employee who wants to take that journey, right? Like you can invest all the time and money and resources in to educating somebody, but if they don't have the desire to get that education, it kind of, so gotta not really have a question for you, just kind of, following up with that. I think it's very, very important for any business to have, that mindset of the leader to empower their employees to learn and get better, but also find the employees who also want to be able to take that journey and will invest in their own development. Right. I think that's a big step.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest part of it is, and I'll say that about this one particular team member that I'm talking about. He, every time that I've given him just a little bit of freedom to, like, hey, why don't you just handle this? Like, he'll do that plus three other things, that I didn't expect him to do, and it's been that way all throughout his progression. And so, yeah, it's just really fulfilling to see somebody who has that kind of gumption, who will take that that upon himself to give himself the best chance to advance and be successful like that.
Yeah, it's infectious too. So.
Yeah, I'm going to switch gears on you a little bit. You talked about marketing if you're going to do that third shop. So how are you doing marketing today for both shops? And then what would you have to do differently for that third shop?
Probably just a more aggressive version of what we're doing right now. We did direct mail for years, and then the Google AdWords and the digital stuff, even Facebook, and you could lump the social media in there. That started really coming on board, and people were utilizing that a lot. And so I think, or at least for my thought, was there was going to be this shift. All that paper, all that direct mail was going to be replaced by everything digital, right? Like that was just a progression, and that's how things were going to go. But what we found out here in the last year or two is that a complement of both of those things still works really well. So we have what I think right now is a good direct mail strategy in place at both places, and then of course a good digital presence. And I think, and again, I'm not speaking from the standpoint of I've done this. There's probably many guys out there who have been through this that could answer this better. But my thought would be you just ramp that up and be a lot more aggressive and a lot more. You're gonna pay for more reach digitally. You're going to pay for more mailers to be mailed out because you want to get the, if you're starting that from nothing, you've got to get that ramped up rather quickly. So you just got to put a lot of resources towards it and get a lot of stuff out there so that you can get the response that you need.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Do you do any? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, William.
I was going to say a dark secret that a lot of people, for some reason, in this industry don't believe. I just found it interesting that you pointed out that the mailers and the direct mail, that it's something that is still surprisingly to all of us who think that digital world think everything is the postcards and the coupons sent out is still a big money driver in this industry. I don't see it going away really anytime soon. So I guess my question for you on that would be, you seem to understand advertising and marketing world. Talk to a lot of shops every day who say, I don't need to market. Word of mouth is just good for me. What would be your advice for a guy that's trying to start his own business, his own shop, and kind of thinks, man, like, do I really need to spend that much money on marketing? What would you tell that person?
I think it all depends on where you're at and what you want to do, and then the kind of results that you want to get. If you're a fairly small operation and you're in a large enough market, you probably wouldn't need to market. You can get the customers that you need to kind of fill the bays the way that you want them. And like I said, and that would do that if the ratio of market size to your shop size is such that, without much marketing, you can pretty well keep your bays full and your guys busy. But if you want to, if you want to grow to match the market size and capitalize and capture the potential of your market share in something like that, then at that point, that's when you really got to start looking at a good marketing strategy, because it's out there and you can drive it to your shop, but then you got to have the space and the people in place to make sure that you can handle the workload. But if you want to grow, in that scenario, I think marketing is almost an absolute.
Yeah. Do you focus on the organic, like SEO or driving traffic to your website? Like, what is the number one channel for bringing in new business for you today?
Well, actually, driving the new business is those direct mail pieces seem to perform about as good as anything. Our Google AdWords or Google ads out there, that those do bring quite a bit in too, and we do obviously make sure that we have our website provider is really good about monitoring our SEO presence and keywords, and we meet once a month and go over all that stuff, and they got a pretty good handle on it. I think all those things are key. Marketing is a lot of small pieces adding up to the end result, and so it's hard to pin it onto one thing. But we do get a large percentage of our new customers from those direct mail pieces.
Got it. And then are you direct mailing a specific coupon for a specific type of jobs?
Yeah, well, we I'll plug Upswell Marketing. I've been dealing with them for a long time, and Jeff down there takes good care of me, and they got a good understanding on it. So we use the one side of the coupon has like an oil change offer, and then the other side has a 3-tiered offer. If you spend this much and you get this much off, and then this much, it's a little more off, and then there'll be a seasonal offer on it. Like this time of the year, we typically want to run some tire specials as we're going to be getting into the fall here, and the weather's going to start changing. People start thinking about their tires, so we'll rotate that other one coupon out that's on there with a seasonal special like tires right now. And then we keep it consistent. There's a lot of little things on the face of that piece, both sides, that kind of help it perform better. And I've gotten a lot of good advice from the mail companies and from Shop Fix Coach over the years, or really in the last year, that's really helped dial that direct mail program in.
That's great. So if you had to go back and do it all over again, what would be one of the things that you would tell yourself, hey, avoid that thing, or do this earlier? What would be a couple of those things?
I think what you said right there, I would tell myself, avoid the hesitation. Get going. I see some of these guys that have really, really grown their companies, and again, I'll go back to just the fulfillment that comes from giving people opportunities, especially those people that you pointed out. Those people that really respond to it when you give them some extra responsibility, and they just grab the bull by the horns and take it. Like I just really enjoy that, and seeing that happen, and seeing the growth, and seeing how it helps their families and improves their life. And so I would just get started on all that sooner.
I love it. What's driving you? We talk about the why, and the bigger vision. You shared. Make sure that people understand the vision. What is the why for Matt and your family, and what is the bigger vision for you out there?
Yeah, I think it's just again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but or I don't want to. I shouldn't say it like that. I don't want to sound like I'm belaboring the point, but it's just helping people. What gets me up is as we grow, we have more and more people on our team, and we have more and more people that want to grow, want to get to the next level, want to accomplish this, want to accomplish that. And if I can play even a small part in that, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And then also just being, I just want to. Sometimes our industry really has a black eye because of, I guess, certain practices, or just perception. And I would like to try and do a small part in changing that. One thing that we started here at Stillville when we built the new shop, and we've done it ever since. So 6 years running now. This will be the 7th year. Is that every year we fix up a vehicle, and we give it away to someone in need of a vehicle, someone who's has some kind of hardship, or fell on hard times, and they're just struggling. They don't have a reliable vehicle, and we give that away. And again, that just wonderful. Really is fulfilling, and I'd like to expand that to be able to do that at the other shop as well, to where we're doing that more often than just once a year. So it's those things that's my why.
Yeah, I share that with you as well. Impact on people. And that comes in so many different ways. You know, the people that work for you, the people that you take care of that bring their car to you. And we really strive to provide a hospitality type of approach to the business as well, to make sure that, you know, we're doing our part to say, hey, you're extremely important to us, and we want you to experience that in every step of the way. And I love seeing individuals like yourself that are continuing to push for improvement. You know, you're obviously a continual learner. You want to grow, you want to provide impact, and you're just a special dude, man. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
William, anything that you wanted to ask Matt before we let him go?
No, just want to thank him for his time and tell him how blessed we are that we got to meet him at the Shop Fix Academy. And man, like looking forward to continuing this relationship and getting you back on the show down the road. Maybe when we celebrate opening that third location, we'll get you back on and talk about it.
Yeah, awesome. It sounds good. Well, listen, I want to tell you guys that we were blessed. I was blessed as well to make that acquaintance, and I really appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity and having this candid discussion. And you mentioned something there that I probably should have brought out too, and that is because you guys had asked before, you know, like you said something about what our top 3 focuses in our business, both shops. What are our main focuses? And the one that I wrote down at the top is just we've been focusing this whole year on the customer experience and just trying to make it a win-win. You know, without the customers that we have appreciating what we do, that we're obviously that we don't even, our business doesn't even exist. So we really appreciate in both of our shops, we really appreciate those people that choose to do business with us. And that's been our focus this year, is trying to make it the best experience possible for them.
Well, you can never go wrong.
Yeah. Put the customer at the center, and everything seems to work out just fine.
Right. Yep.